Welcome to Screen Quest, a podcast where a fellowship of film lovers and armchair movie experts plays film roulette. I'm one of your hosts, Chris Waterman, joined, as always, by May Finch.
Hi, everyone.
And Mr. Will Rotondi.
Hey.
Welcome back, you all. We have a great show lined up for you today, as always. On last week's episode, we drew a fade to black, which is where we discuss the final scene in a film and why it has lasting impact. The film, of course, was The Dark Knight, as evidenced by Will's background there. And specifically, we'll be talking about Gordon's voiceover that sort of narrates the final sequence of the movie. But first, we are going to do a little I hate that this like 3 episodes in a row, but we're going to do another in memoriam. As of our recording date today, Olivia Newton-John has passed away. Legendary actress, singer, and even star of one of our films, Two of a Kind. Even though we took the ever-loving piss out of that movie, we love her. She's a wonderful human being. She unfortunately succumbed to, I think I saw the 20-year battle with breast cancer, something crazy like that. It's a long time.
Yeah.
But just absolutely terrible, sad news. Seemed like an awesome, wonderful human being. I had a crush as a kid on her. The first time seeing Grease, I fell in love like immediately.
Of course you did.
Yeah. And it wasn't just the leather scene either. Even Goody Two Shoes, Sandy, I thought was just beautiful and gorgeous, and she had such a nice voice, and it's just a sad thing. Anybody have a favorite Olivia Newton-John movie or song?
I mean, it's so funny watching the scene when she has the John Travolta in Two of a Kind, where it's obvious that they have good chemistry, but it's the most like awkward, awful love scene because of the lines they have to say.
Yeah.
And I love the duality of man that you can see in Olivia Newton-John in that moment.
Yeah, that is a pretty spectacular scene for sure. Unintentionally funny, perhaps, but amazing nonetheless. How about you, Will? Any particular sequence or film or song? Any Olivia Newton-John memories you want to share?
I think the most memorable for me has got to be Two of a Kind. And that's only because I haven't really seen much of anything else with her in it besides probably Grease, but it's been so long that I've watched that film. So that's really all that I know. But obviously, I mean, she's had an extremely successful career besides that. And so I think I have more homework to do than anything else to go back and to learn more. So
her music's wonderful. Like, I'd urge you tonight, pop a couple random things on Spotify, look up some of the hits. She's got just a killer voice. And yeah, Grease is always worth another look. Like, as we've established here, I'm not a huge musical person at all, but that's one of the ones that I really enjoy. It's maybe like some stuff's a little problematic by today's standards, but nothing too egregious. And it is fun. Like, the soundtrack's a banger. Like, there's no doubt about it. So rest in peace, Olivia Newton-John. We loved your work and we'll miss you. To offset that a little bit, we thought it'd be fun to wish a very happy birthday to the star of one of all of our favorite movies from this year, Michelle Yeoh, star of Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I always have to say very carefully because I have a tendency to like invert some of those things, but But yeah, of course, star of other films such as Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Sword of Destiny, Memoirs of a Geisha, among many others. So happy birthday, Michelle Yeoh. I finally have seen Everything Everywhere All at Once, so that's an easy pick for me of like the favorite film that she's ever been in performance, because that was stunning and just excellent. But I'll open the floor up to you guys if you have a favorite role or film that she was in.
Yeah, I haven't seen Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I know that was kind of like her main thing that she was in for a long time. But I feel like Everything Everywhere All at Once is like the first time she had like a true starring role. And you got to see her play like a really, really beautiful, complex, nuanced character, and she just killed it. I'm also rather fond of her performance in Crazy Rich Asians because that's the first time I actually saw her.
Really?
And yeah, I love her. She's great.
She
Glad
is
she's
awesome.
with us for another revolution of the earth.
Yes.
Yes, please. Yeah, everything everywhere all at once is like, it's amazing. I can't speak enough of how much I love that film. But yeah, for that, or I always forgot that she was in Tomorrow Never Dies. So the Pierce
Mm.
Brosnan James Bond movie back in the
Yep.
day. That was probably the first movie I technically saw her in without realizing, like thinking back on that, because I have seen Crouching Tiger. Tomorrow Never Dies. There was a Jackie Chan movie that she was in where she kicked butt, and I can't remember the name of it, but that's been on like on the list of things to go back and check out. And then Star Trek, actually, Star Trek Discovery. She's had a recurring role for at least, I want to say, about 2 seasons on Star Trek Discovery, maybe 3. So definitely worth checking out because she is that's like the 180 of the type of character that she's like in Everything Everywhere. She is like ruthless and it's awesome to watch. So
I mean, she has a couple ruthless lines in Everything Everywhere All at Once.
that is true. That is
does.
true.
Yeah,
I forget
particularly
exactly
aimed
what
at.
she. Yeah, I was gonna
Oh,
say, especially aimed at Joy. I forget exactly what she said, but she was like, "How are you doing? Why are you fat?" Essentially.
Nice.
yep. Well, happy birthday again, Michelle Yeoh. It's been a pleasure to watch your career and to many more. All right, let's have a side quest, shall we? Gonna
We shall.
give these a little shuffle here. Oh, I just realized I can
Wow.
literally right click and do that. And this whole time I've been it's more fun to shake it though. You know what I mean? No
Mm.
regrets. All right. So Great Expectations is our card. I can't recall who all has gone. I think I know for sure, May, you have. Will, didn't you
Yeah.
do one as well? I don't have I done one on this?
I don't think that you have. I think that you should, because I definitely mentioned Prometheus on a previous
Mm.
episode
Yeah.
regarding the Alien franchise. So
Um, I'll pick a recent example. I think it's a film that I watched with May, if I'm not mistaken. You came over to watch Many Saints of Newark, didn't you? When we had like a watch party.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's a pretty easy pick for me. And it's not that I think that film is particularly like bad. It's just so aggressively mediocre as both a gangster movie and also as like a Sopranos like spinoff. It felt very unnecessary. Like by the end of it, there's only a couple of really interesting things that they add to the lore, and it felt more like a victory lap without like the people that you really wanted to see like in those roles, right? Like I don't regret watching it, but yeah, I think like it fell so far short of the, and I had pretty tempered expectations, like even though it was a Sopranos spinoff, like, and that's like probably my favorite show, and I consider to be the best show on TV like of all time, maybe in contention with Mad Men, but in any event, just something about it didn't quite work for me the way that I'd hoped that it would. What was you like? You had no baggage with you, May, when you saw it. What did you make of that? Now that you've seen some other gangster films and stuff like subsequently, like what did you think of it?
Yeah, for audience context, for the audience, the context on this is Chris has been trying to introduce me to Italian gangsta movies, one movie at a time, and this was the first one. So I had not seen The Godfather at this point. I still haven't seen Sopranos, and I thought it ambled quite a bit. I didn't quite get where it was going. I didn't have the context of like the importance of every character either. Um, I really liked the like young bride they brought over from Italy. I'm blanking on her name, and then they spoiler alert, she's not in the movie for too long. And then I was sad and kind of lost interest. So I didn't love it, but I stuck with it, and I have now seen better movies in that genre, like The Godfather.
Yeah, there's some all right performances. Like I really liked like Ray Liotta's always great. Also like R.I.P. It was fun to watch him, and I thought Michael Gandolfini did a great job playing a young version of Tony. Like those were some big shoes to fill, and I thought he did an all right job. I think ambling is the right, like that's a perfect word for it. Like it really just does kind of go all over the place. I think I would have enjoyed it a bit more if it had had some more focus. I actually liked who they set up, like the whole storyline with the gangsters that were in like Newark that get killed at the, well, some of them get killed at the end, and like it's kind of set up for like a spin-off where they're blamed for the death of, you know, Christopher's father or whatever. I'm blanking on the name of that crew, but like it's like the crew of like black gangsters. Like that would have been way more interesting than what they ended up kind of spending their time on, which was like a lot of kind of I don't know, wife beating and shooting bullets through wife's hair and just all kinds of other stuff that like
Lots of wife beating, like a lot.
yeah. Yeah. And you know, The Sopranos is not without its like you know, misogynistic characters and like moments that are in it, but they all sort of serve a greater purpose, and they're much fewer and far between than like what was in this 2-hour movie. But
I think that's why that's why I liked the I feel bad that I'm only referring to her as the like new wife or whatever, but she didn't get a lot of character development. I think I latched on to her just because I was like, she's got a shitty deal. I hope she gets at least one dub in this whole film. She kind of does, and then she really, really doesn't.
Yeah, I'm looking up now too because I'm curious. That's how big of an impact she left or that movie left on us, really. Yeah. Looks like nope. Giuseppe? Nope. Yeah, Giuseppe?
Yeah.
Giuseppina? Yeah, Giuseppina. That looks right.
Okay. Yeah.
But did you see this, Will? And like, are you a Sopranos fan?
I will be no help to you in this. I've never seen the TV show, and I have definitely not seen this. So
Well,
this is more just entertaining for me before actually going back and ever watching it. So
I would say don't watch this unless you've seen like advice that I couldn't give obviously before I'd seen the movie. I would have given so many disclaimers to poor May if I had known like how heavy it was going to be on, like I think it just banked a lot on like the nostalgia of the show without doing anything really interesting. But when Nathan Idle is dying to do like a Sopranos like watch, like, you know, like maybe like a little bit at a time, May, so you're welcome to join for that. And Will, you can watch along from afar. Maybe we can do like an occasional check-in called like Gavin with Gabagool or something like that. I don't know. Like we'll think of something
podcast.
Yeah.
Into the Screen Quest universe.
Yeah. Oh boy, there's so many of those stars are spinning in their graves right now. Probably James Gandolfini amongst them. Gavin with Gabagool. Jesus. All right. Moving on. Unless anybody wants to add anything about Many Saints of Newark, but that was a pretty easy choice for me because it's the most I've just been disappointed in a movie in a while, probably.
The title is beautifully ironic because by the end of the movie there's a lot fewer Saints of Newark.
There are. Yep. And I'm a big dum-dum, and I didn't realize like the title was derived from like Moltisanti, which is like the name of the main character and like the, you know, father of somebody who's you know, like a main character in The Sopranos. Christopher narrates it. So yeah, Moltisanti. I felt so stupid when I realized. I was like, oh, that's why. But I like your explanation too. I don't know how you
there
would
were
say
many and now there were few.
Yeah, exactly. As it is Will's pick that's up for grabs here, or I should say that we're discussing, I'm going to turn it over to Will to lead the discussion on the final scene of The Dark Knight. So take it away, Will.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, I guess just as a quick recap then, our usual spoiler-filled explanation of the plot behind The Dark Knight, since I can't assume everybody has seen this movie at this point. It was how I felt when I was surprised somebody hadn't seen The Matrix to talk about once. So, but it came out back in 2008. It's the second of the Dark Knight trilogy that Christopher Nolan did, and it stars Christian Bale, Heath Ledger, R.I.P., Aaron Eckhart, Maggie Gyllenhaal, Gary Oldman, Morgan Freeman, and Michael Caine. And I guess just to give, there's a lot that goes on in this film. So I feel like if I was to give like a bullet point synopsis about what happens, I'm just going to start firing some stuff off. So we've got Harvey Dent, who takes on the mob, played by Aaron Eckhart. We've got the mob that turns to the Joker, played by Heath Ledger, for help. Maybe not initially, but comes around to asking him for, not really asks, but partners with him for help. The Joker continues to sow chaos in Gotham through domestic terrorism. The Joker kills Rachel, who is played by Maggie Gyllenhaal, who is the love interest for Bruce Wayne, and who's also in I should say, a relationship in this film with Harvey Dent. Batman doesn't kill the Joker when he gets a chance. Harvey Dent turns to the dark side after being seriously burned in, I can only imagine, would not ever be realistic, because there's no way that man would not have something covering his face, but it's cool because he's Two-Face. So there's that. The Joker loses a bet on a social experiment, which I hope we will talk a little bit about. And then Harvey Dent turns, or I'm sorry, should say, he goes after the cops that basically were working with the mob that sold him out, and takes revenge on them. And then tries to take revenge on Jim Gordon, as well as Gordon's kid, before Batman intervenes, pushes him off a ledge, and kills him. Maybe not directly, intentionally killing him, but it worked out because we knew that was just what was going to have to happen. Besides that, there is some other interplay with Batman and the Joker that would be good to talk about as well. But at the very end, after Harvey Dent / Two-Face is defeated, we have a scene where Batman is talking to Gordon and essentially says that we can't let everyone find out what happened to Harvey Dent, about him turning to the dark side. Essentially, we have to keep this image that he was this white knight who was helping to rid the city of crime. And I'm going to go ahead and take one for the team and just tell everybody that I'm the one that killed those cops, is essentially what Batman says, and then runs off. And the cops start chasing him. And at that point, Jim Gordon's kid, I guess Jim Jr. or James Jr. is standing next to him and says something to the effect of, like, why are they chasing him? He didn't do anything wrong. And we get a little bit of a voiceover narration, kind of cut back and forth between him explaining to his son that, at least the way that he feels, and sort of emblematic of the tone of the film, is that that Batman is not the hero that Gotham deserves, but the one that it needs right now. And he goes on to say something to the effect of, like, we're going to continue to hunt him because he can take it, because he's not our hero. He's a silent guardian, a watchful protector, a dark knight. That's probably not the exact quote, but I feel like it's close enough to it.
No, I think you need to get in character, Will, and read the entire monologue.
I should do that? Yeah, there we go. I don't know if I could pull off the accent that I got to get a little bit of that, like, I don't know, Chicago accent going on, I feel like, for Gordon. I'll work on that for next time. But
There you go.
but yeah, so that was, and I have to say that I have loved this movie for a long time. So I'm just going to throw that one out there. But before we get into discussing the end of the film, I would like to turn it back over to both of you. Chris, I know that you had mentioned you typically watch this like once a year kind of a thing. So I'll pass it over to you to give us your thoughts on watching it again this go around.
Yeah, I don't know if a film has ever got so firmly stuck in my brain since this movie's come out, or before. I probably saw this like 8 times, like in movie theaters. Like, there was something about it. And of course, like Ledger's Joker was awesome, but the very Michael Mann, like, Heat-esque, like, opening, like the bank robbery sequence, all the practical effects for like the chases and things like that. There's just so much about it that works really well. It's an all-time great. I think I still consider it probably to be the best superhero movie, and it's what really like solidified my love of Batman, like, as a character, and got me into comics. Really, like, I was very interested to find out where the influences lay for this. So I know like Long Halloween and The Killing Joke were both like big, so it kind of led me to that, and that was my very first like footsteps into the world of comics. And then now I've got like a shelf behind me that's just like full of Bat books and like a closet with, I'm not even gonna say how many issues of Batman comics. So yeah, I
This is
love
a
it. I
safe
mean,
space. You can tell us.
yeah,
We're
it's
all
over a
nerds
thousand.
here.
It's over a thousand. We'll leave it at that.
Noise.
We'll leave it at
That
that.
was, I'm impressed.
Yeah. And I haven't even collected for that long, but yeah, I think it's a perfect movie. There's really no elements of this except for I know this may not be like the most popular opinion. Maggie Gyllenhaal's I don't like her take on Rachel as much as I liked the I'm blanking Katie Holmes. I thought like that character was a little more interesting and spicy in the first one. But that's a really small nitpick, and it's not really Maggie Gyllenhaal's fault. I don't think she has a lot to work with in the script. Like she it literally is like a fridge the girlfriend kind of moment in this that's like kind of disappointing. And but that's it. Like if I have to nitpick, but other than that, like I mean, I love this movie unabashedly. It's incredible. Like what else is there to say?
How about you, May?
I actually have seen this before. This was not my first viewing.
Nailed
it. So yeah, it was good to go back and watch it again. I think that this is like, I'm gonna get some heat from Marvel fans, but I do think this is like how you do a good comic book movie, personally. Just yeah, like everything is perfect about it. From the characters feeling very solidly in like who they are and what they want and what they're able to do. And obviously like the filmmaking is phenomenal. I love all of the vivid like sets and imagery used throughout. Like it just it's got a lot of eye candy in it for what is like a dark, dingy city, which is surprising. So yeah, I love those aspects. Were it not a comic book movie, I do think I'd kind of hate it just because of things like Chris mentioned, the fridging, the fact that none of the logic makes sense in terms of basically any of the big like events that happen. I also don't think the end logic makes a ton of sense outside of a comic book either, but we'll get to that. But as a comic book movie, I love this. Gold star, I rank it above any Marvel movie that's come out personally.
Nice. Oh man. All right. The gauntlet has been thrown. Better step it up, Marvel. I don't know. Those millions that you're raking in doesn't matter because you haven't beat this film yet. So
yeah, they've come close. I mean, I feel like Infinity War Endgame were about as close as Marvel's come. And that's like less about like how good they were in terms of like telling a really great narrative, and both of those are like great stories, don't get me wrong, but more the scale of that was what was impressive, like the culmination of all those years of planning. But yeah, I digress anyway. But you're right, it has not been surpassed.
Oh man, excellent. Yeah, for me it's got to be, I mean, I'm a sucker for like practical effects. I love when people can do stuff that looks real but it's like scaled down models. Like the scene in the tunnel to me is just amazing when you go back and you look at some of the behind the scenes stuff about the like basically the RC cars that they use to do that. And so yeah, I think for me that's always going to be my all-time favorite thing. That watching Marvel movies as a comparison is actually a great point because I get kind of zoned out with CGI after a while, but I will always love practical effects. So
Same.
I think beyond that, I mean, just the acting also too. I mean, Heath Ledger is incredible as the Joker, and it's always fun to laugh at Batman's different voices in every incarnation that he's got. I mean, the Christian Bale Batman is definitely the graveliest, I feel like. I haven't watched the latest one, so I can't actually compare that to the Batman. But I always used to think it was funny listening to like the various like degrees of graveliness that Bale would have depending on which movie in the trilogy it was. So that was always fun.
Speaking of casting, Michael Caine is Alfred. Like I cannot see anyone else as Alfred.
That is valid. He is definitely, yeah, it's true. I love Michael Caine. And he's always around for like the really emotional moments in these movies too. So it's
and they'll just like quietly take the card off the platter.
You're just like, nope.
Yeah.
Don't need that anymore.
You're not ready for this.
the interplay between those characters, like not just in this, but like in like the comics and like everywhere else, is one of my favorite aspects, and they absolutely nailed it with this particular movie. I hope they do more with the Andy Serkis Alfred in the Pattinson one, because what we got with him, like little hints that they dropped, like, you know, so Alfred in like the comics was in the SAS special forces, and so like they like it's like a little throwaway line. I just rewatched it Friday, the Batman, and he says like, hey, I taught you how to fight, and it's kind of cool that they like peppered that in, like, because Alfred like was a badass in his own right, which is how he can always stitch up Batman and, you know, knows what he knows. But you're right, May. I think so far definitive by a country mile is Michael Caine. Michael Caine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome.
One other general comment I had was just the comedic timing is also another way that this is just a great comic book adaptation.
Yeah.
Because I do feel like Marvel like relies on like some cheesy one-liners and zingers a lot of the time, whereas there's a ton of visual comedy in this and just like pacing comedy. Like when Two-Face, before he's Two-Face, when he's in the van being driven through the tunnel and the guys are shooting, and he like nervously asks the cop like, hey, can they get through that? And the cop says, oh no, they'll need something much bigger. And then just visually they pull out the bazooka.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Lots of stuff like that, which is great. I much prefer like having a bit of a visual aspect to just like little one-liners that you kind of like scoff at. So sorry,
Yeah.
Marvel fans.
Look, I think
this is like seriously becoming like a Marvel bash fest up in the air.
I love Marvel movies.
I have some stuff to get off of my chest. All right.
It's okay.
It's all right. This could be a therapy session. It's cool.
It's well deserved, man. Like I love my Marvel movies, but like after seeing like Love and Thunder, like it's become apparent that they like fail to understand like why like that balance works so well, and that like that can't be the only thing that you like. We like the silliness and some of the humor and stuff, but like it's okay to have like a pretty straightforward Marvel movie that's like fun and has some humor in it without like bashing you over the head. Like anyway, I'm sorry, I don't want to derail the podcast. I was a little overwhelmed with like the amount of like jokes that they like tried, and a lot of them fell flat in Thor Love and Thunder. So you're absolutely correct. The Joker, for example, like he's got so many great like gags that that work really, really well. Even when he's being scary, like there's still kind of a bit of like, I don't know, like an undertone of like humor to how he reacts to people and interacts with them. Like, you think you could just get away with this? Yeah. He's got his hand on the grenades. I mean, it's menacing, but it's amazing too. It's funny.
Yeah,
it's true. Or like when he's outside the hospital and just whacking away on the what is it, the ignition key to try it. Like he thinks the whole bomb hasn't gone off, and so he's just messing with the remote, like, you know, what's wrong with this? And then the whole thing goes up and he just darts off into the bus. Or when he does the disappearing pencil trick at the beginning. So yeah,
the main time I like actually laughed out loud is when the Joker comes and visits Dent in the hospital, turns around, Dent sees like Joker's face, mask, wig, and then freaks out as soon as the mask comes off. And I'm like, did you not see the eyes and the face paint?
That's so apparent. That is not I mean, if you up to this point have seen that regularly at the hospital, you're probably in the wrong spot. Like, if that's what your nurses look like regularly, they're way overworked, first of all. Like,
awesome. I mean, to be fair, half of his face was also like tremendously burned, so that other eye might not work very well. So he might be working with some depth perception on that too.
He's probably a little drugged up too, I gotta imagine.
Yeah.
But still, maybe. You're right.
The timing of when he freaks out is so
yes. It just goes to show how amazing a mask can be. Can't tell who's under there. Oh man, nice. All right, guys. So it's a safe space. So anything else that you want to get off your chest about Marvel and how it can go suck a fuck, as Jake Gyllenhaal used to say back in Donnie Darko?
No.
Or maybe Maggie Gyllenhaal. I've got Gyllenhaal in the brain now. But yeah,
I've gotten it off my chest for now. We'll see. We'll see if this brings up any other issues under the surface for me.
It's like, actually, I really hate Marvel, you guys. I didn't learn until today during this podcast, but damn.
I will say as one last aside for like in the general commentary, the Batman does make an excellent companion to the Dark Knight. So
Nice.
I urge you to check it out. It's on HBO Max. If you want to see something that it feels like it owes a lot to the Dark Knight, and you'll see what I mean. Like I don't want to like get into too many specifics, but like I really enjoyed like the second viewing, especially of that, like which I just on Friday watched. But it's got like a lot. I think it took a lot of the right lessons from the Dark Knight on how you can do something. It's not particularly funny, like in the way that like this film is, but I think that the way it unfolds and some of like the eye candy and practical effects and things like that are very much lend themselves well. And yeah, you'll see. Let me know what you think, but it does make a good viewing companion, so check it out.
Excellent. I guess off of that, is it closer to like how the comics feel? Like, is it more true to the source material?
It's you know, like any movie adaptation of Batman is going to be it's going to feel like its own thing. Like there's just things in the comics, and it depends on what comics too, right? Like there's a pretty wide spectrum. You have like bombastic, like silly Batman fighting somebody like Clayface, you know, and like where like it's really over the top and colorful and like light, and then you have stuff like the Long Halloween or Killing Joke that's like very like dark, or Dark Knight Returns, for example. So I would say that there's a couple of comics that it reminded me of, but definitely on the darker side. It's a more grounded Batman, and that like he makes a lot of, because he's young, like it's not like his like origin story, but it's like in his first year of being Batman. So he's incredibly fallible, and like physically fallible too. Like there's some times where he really fucks up and fucks himself up, and it's kind of nice to see like an interpretation of Batman where he's not just like zipping along like through the rooftops, like, you know, flawlessly, right? So that's just a hard question to answer. I guess like there are elements that it draws from the comics, but it does feel like its own thing, and I like it for that reason. Like I always appreciate when somebody takes on Batman and tries to do something different with the character. Like you have familiar elements of the character, and some of the stuff in the Batman didn't work. Like the Bruce Wayne being a recluse thing isn't really my favorite interpretation of that character. But him as Batman I really like, and I think that hopefully in the next films they'll kind of inch more into like the billionaire playboy kind of, you know, and there's a reason for that, but I hope they kind of go that route. And again, like with Alfred, just I think there's more things that they can do to kind of develop that character even further. But this was more of like a detective kind of story for the Batman. So
going back and reflecting on what Gordon says and kind of leading up to everything that's going on at the end, it's always interesting, or at least I find it interesting, when you have a movie where the protagonist seems like they need to take on other characters' misdeeds, sins, errors in judgment, poor life choices, any of that stuff. So like to see that Batman is the one who's willing to be like, all right, you know, for the we're gonna save Harvey Dent's honor and carry on his legacy so that people don't lose faith in what, you know, Gotham can be and not give in to terrorism. I just think it's, on the one hand, I understand why as a comic book story it tries to be noble like that. It also feels a little Jesus-y to me too in some ways. Like that, I hadn't really thought into that route until after watching it this time and thinking like, you know, I'm not a really religious person, but for me watching that, I thought, you know, it's interesting, sort of like the parallel of I will take on your sin, I will take on this city's sin, I will deal with, you know, being the bad guy, essentially. I will be the outlet that you want to take out your punishment on. And so that was kind of a weird feeling going back in and watching that. But I don't know, that was kind of what I got out of that final scene. I'm really interested to kind of get some feedback from you guys, either how you might have felt the first time that you watched it or how it felt to you this time. So May, I'm going to pass it over to you first, since we got some feedback from Chris the last time.
Yeah, so the first time I watched it, I was definitely thinking like, oh, that's kind of like not the way I saw that going at the end. Like it definitely felt kind of like a sudden veer to the right. But rewatching it, it I don't think it works for me. And I get that, like, comic book logic, you're relying on these heroes, right? And they're very symbolic, and a hero and what they symbolize is much more important than really anything else in the city in terms of like establishing law and order in this world. It's like, in that logic, it kind of makes sense, except there is literally a man who went on the airwaves saying he was going to wreak havoc the whole night across the city. They couldn't just blame a few cop killings on him. Like, that would be very believable. And then Batman wouldn't get blamed for anything. He could just keep doing his baddie stuff, and Arthur Dent would still be the White Knight. So I have no idea why they felt like they had to pin stuff on Batman, except to give him a Jesus moment, essentially. So that annoys me. And then outside of the comic book, like, logic, I just think it's funny that we have a city where we find out that most of the deaths of innocents that happen, like Rachel, at least the innocents we care about, like Rachel and, kind of Harvey, the good part of Harvey, I should say, is because of corrupt policing and like of the fact that their criminal justice system is just broken, does not work whatsoever. So it's funny to me that the solution is just to say that, no, we had a great DA, we had one good guy in that system. He's dead now, but we had one good guy. The end.
And I'll point out that one good guy did plenty of really fucking questionable shit.
Right?
Like,
besides, before he went Two-Face too, like,
Yeah.
kidnapping that like young man who is like also mentally unwell and trying to kill him. Like,
I mean, he says like, I make my own luck, and like it is revealed that like, like there's never a time where the coin flip is going to like result in the death of the person, but still.
No. One side gets burnt in the fire.
No, but that's like before. But that's before
okay.
like the like the guy, like when the guy's in the and
Sure.
that guy, by the way, is Polka Dot Man from the Suicide Squad. I don't know if you guys picked up on that, but yeah, like, but still, it's very disturbing scene. And also he's willing to sort of work with Batman to skirt around the law to like catch the people. Like, I mean, yeah. Whether it's like right or wrong, like he's still working outside of the law, right? Like he wants to paint himself as like Gotham's White Knight, but he does a lot of shit that's like, it's illegal and violates people's civil liberties, like even if it is like for a good cause. So just want to point that out.
Yep. Anyway, some mixed feelings about the end. Mixed, ranging from that doesn't make sense to what the fuck.
Where would you say on the what the fuckometer were you at the point at that point in particular? I mean, there's a pretty wide range throughout the film that you suspend disbelief, but was this like the ultimate point?
It felt like you get to the end of the film and you're like, oh shit, this is called The Dark Knight. How do we make it The Dark Knight?
I know, we'll blame him for killing cops. Yeah.
There we go. Now he's The Dark Knight. Anyway, yeah. It was that pretty much. Also, like the I don't know, his whole like no killing rule also seems a little silly, because I'm sure he's killed people before just by like attempting non-lethal methods and not doing them quite non-lethally.
He has done some serious property damage when he blew up those two cars using some rockets, and man, you better hope those parked cars didn't have people in them.
Yeah. I don't know. That feels more like just to soothe his own conscience, not a thing he necessarily actually follows in practice.
He's got some loopholes. Like in the first movie, Ra's al Ghul definitely, like, he could save him, and he's like, I'm not gonna kill you. I don't have to save you. And then he like leaps out of a train, and poor Liam Neeson goes careening into the side of a building and blows up. So like, I mean, he's got rules, but there's some fucking asterisks there too. Which just seems to be the status quo in Gotham, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It always gets me when he's like he's on his basically his souped up his bat bike, and
Yes.
he could have just done something, and he just doesn't want to, like, I understand if you don't want to run the Joker over necessarily, but he just doesn't do anything.
That is
He
kind
just
of a
plays
gory
chicken
way
with
to
him.
do it.
Yeah. Roadkill. Yeah. Oh man, it'd be very colorful though. It'd be just all
Oh
over
God.
all that makeup all over the place.
Yeah.
But yeah, that to me, I just thought it's so strange, because don't get me wrong, like I understand the idea, but you could still maim somebody, right? Like maybe just take his kneecaps out or something. I don't know. He seems to have very good aim with everything else. I'm surprised that he just didn't decide to do something.
Right.
But then we wouldn't have the rest of the, we wouldn't have the plot, I guess.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah, I get that actually. Well, that encapsulates it for me. It felt like a lot of it was very well done and character driven until you're getting towards the end. And then it was like the plot deciding to take over for the characters just to like close out well.
Like, let's have a cop stand in the locked room with the Joker to watch him. Like, why was that guy in there except for an excuse to be overpowered and then as a hostage to get out? So yeah, there's little bits here and there where you're like, I kind of get it for the sake of suspending disbelief, but in retrospect, probably not a wise choice, but still, yeah. Well, actually thinking about people that make questionable decisions and then surprise you as well. I always really like the scene with where the Joker sets up the bombs on the two ferries, and he gives the social experiment essentially of telling both ferry crews and occupants that the other ferry has a detonator to the bomb that is on their ferry. One ferry that has basically, I'm just going to go out and assume it's middle to lower upper class folks that are on it, and the other one that's got a bunch of incarcerated people from from Arkham that are both stuck out in the water. And so it's the question of who do you think is going to pull the trigger first? And they've got about, I want to say 20 minutes, could have been less than that, might have been 10. They have a certain amount of time they have to make their decision in. And so everybody, of course, assumes, oh, they're gonna blow up the boat with all the criminals on it, right? And we get that great moment where one of those guys on the boat walks over, like really big, intimidating dude, walks up to the, I'll say the guy who's sort of in charge below deck at that point, and kind of whispers to him like, just give it to me. I'll take care of it. Like, I'll do what you should have done 20 minutes ago. Nobody has to know.
It's such a great speech.
I know. It's awesome. And then he just takes it and chucks it out the window and goes and sits back down and just kind of like, huddles with his group of guys, just like praying that maybe they're not going to get blown up. And I thought, this is awesome. That is by far one of my favorite scenes in that film. And it's just really telling, like about the people doing good versus people sort of giving into their fear. But anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Meg.
I was gonna say it's telling, and it does, like, I guess, make how like shittily this movie treats all of the like prisoners and criminals in it, like, I guess, more palatable, because that's not necessarily the lens of the movie. It's just the lens of everyone that's like Batman and in law enforcement, because like the scene really beautifully shows it's like, no, these are just people. They probably have like family on that other boat even, like.
It is nice to see that even the one guy, like the one really like seemed better off. His clothes looked pretty nice. The one dude.
I really thought he was going to push.
I know. And then just had that last minute thought, this was definitely not like up to Squid Games like level of we're gonna fuck each other over, but it came close, and you're just like, is he gonna do it? So yeah. So just thinking about like, yeah, like it's nice watching in this film, in spite of the nitpicks that we love to pick apart. I think that it is interesting just watching the characters that decide to do the more honorable or compassionate move for whatever their reasons are, whether you think it's good or not, but like just in the moment to be the better person and to take the higher road with that and to surprise you. And I feel like that's definitely one of the scenes. I mean, in any sort of, we could say superhero movies in general, or we can just say in like sort of gritty crime, films where it's like, oh, like it's pleasantly surprising to see somebody like actually be a human being. So,
Right.
any other that's actually the two that stuck out to me the most in this film, but there's definitely some other points that are, in either important to carrying that message along or just, interesting in the sake of discussing too. Were there any other scenes that really stuck out to either of you? And Chris, I can turn it back over to you on this one to start with, that just sort of you really enjoyed. It could be whether it's about what we've been talking about, or it could just be from the fact that it's the Dark Knight and it's amazing and you love that part.
Yeah. I mean, so I first of all, like I love the like so this movie hit when I was at the height of my Alfred Hitchcock obsession, and there's this idea of like transference of guilt that happens in a lot of his film. A very common template in Hitchcock is a guy is wrongfully accused
Mm,
and like has to basically prove his innocence, and like he's got guilt transferred from like the actual guilty party to him, and has to sort of figure out a way to prove his innocence and slide it back. This movie is sort of that turned on its head, where like that happens at the end of the film, and that is sort of like where the ending lies. So that's something that struck me like right off the bat the very first time I saw it, and I continue to really love it. I think it's like, I know we're not technically talking about The Dark Knight Rises, but I think what makes this ending work for me more now that like that trilogy is complete is that I think it does beautifully set up The Dark Knight Rises, which I know gets made fun of because Bane talks, goofy and stuff. But that's a movie I've watched a couple of times since its theatrical release, and it's grown on me substantially. I think it's better than Batman Begins. It's not as good as this
mm,
one, but I think where Batman ends up, where Gotham ends up, and then sort of like you see that the decision that Gordon makes in this moment, to May's point, is a bad choice. It doesn't fix anything. The cracks are starting to show in the foundation. The death of Harvey Dent is used to fuck a lot of people over in the criminal
mhm,
justice system. And there is this question of like, did we make the right choice? The answer is clearly no. And the consequences that are paid because of that are pretty grave for a lot of people, and for the city of Gotham in particular. So I do like how it's set up. I don't know how much planning like went into it. I imagine there had to be at least some outline of like what that trilogy was going to do, like or like how it was gonna all kind of shake up. I'm sure they didn't have like the script written when this movie came out, but I'm sure like the broad strokes were there. So I appreciate it for that reason, in particular. As far as like the other like morality moments, I think really the stuff that we've kind of already covered is that like everybody in this place kind of all has their own code, and people take some positions of like moral superiority that I don't feel like are always earned. And like even like the Joker, right, who would never claim to be like morally superior, like that moment that you're talking about with the fairies, like what is he about to do? He's about to blow up both the fucking boats because he can't
mhm,
stand to be beaten, right? Like
mhm,
he like says that he like help present rules, but he's time and again he like cheats. So it results in Rachel's death. Obviously he tells Batman the wrong address, knowing that he's probably going to go to where he thinks Rachel is, and it's obviously where Dent is, right?
mhm.
Oh. His whole shtick is that randomness is fair, but when the random stuff doesn't go the way he wants, he just makes the outcome be what he wants.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. And I think like to bring all that together, probably uh ironic, I guess, then that the person who probably is the most reliable is the person that A has the most money and power, which is Bruce Wayne, who people don't know is Batman. Like he's the one that makes the choices that sort of I would say you could argue are the most moral choices. Destroying the program that can tap all the phones, or not really
Yeah.
even destroying it, giving Morgan Freeman sort of the power, Lucius Fox, like, hey, like here's the code, like you put in your stuff and like you just have to trust me, and then it like obviously self-destructs, right?
Mhm.
Taking on the responsibility, even though it's a bad decision ultimately to carry the burden of like Dent's misdeeds, and the hope that it'll fix things in Gotham. um I don't know, I think he like proves to be probably like the character, again, even though he's like ironically a vigilante who has like the strongest moral code. And yes, his no killing rules may be a little bit questionable and how realistic you think that is based on some of his actions, but I think that you got to suspend your disbelief a little bit and go like, probably not. Like certainly intentionally he wouldn't do it. And I think what I like so much about the sequel is that like this movie feels very much like it's a Batman film, but it's kind of a Batman and Joker story, whereas like the Dark Knight Rises is very much like a Batman and Bruce Wayne story. I think that's why I gravitate so much more to it, like the more I watch it, because you get to see all that stuff play out and you get to see some of his instincts rewarded, like even if he has to kind of go in a roundabout journey to get there, to bring it all home. And he's got a happy ending, sitting on the cafe with Anne Hathaway drinking a cappuccino and giving a little wink and a nod to, to Alfred. Like that's a pretty good way to, to wrap it up, I suppose. There's worse ways to have an afternoon anyway, I guess.
Nice.
Anne Hathaway and a cappuccino sounds great to me.
Yeah, right.
I'm right there with you. The only other thing I was thinking about, having gone back and watched this again, was about sort of actually what Chris, you had mentioned earlier, was about Batman's ability to use Lucius Fox's technology as a way to recreate, essentially like sonar, using everyone's mobile devices to be able to see what's going on around them. In very much I guess it very much like a Patriot Act sort of way after like 9/11. So that to me was the only other parallel that I could feel like watching this film, and sort of like the domestic terrorism the Joker's doing, and the sort of the extent to which people are willing to compromise their morals to try and stop an evil that they see as threatening them or threatening their family. And so that, and I maybe not so weird of a stretch to think that that technology either does or will one day exist, especially when you consider, like, I think I was reading just earlier today how Amazon's trying to buy up the company that owns Roomba.
Yes.
And just think about all the data that Amazon will have about the inside of your home. So, I mean, it's not too far-fetched to think that maybe there will be a supercomputer that will just be able to see everything one day. But I mean, there's so much smart technology that it's like we're practically giving away that already as it is. But yeah, but for back in the day, I was laughing about like the TV screen that they've got when they pull it out, when I think it's Lau who was talking to the other guys in the mob group, and just thinking about, yeah, that was 2008. I was thinking about, like, I was almost out of college and technology where it was and the phone that I had, and I'm like, yeah, wow. It doesn't feel like it's been that long, but still it's interesting watching it then versus now. So
I have to ask Chris, because I haven't seen the new Batman. Does it feature a Zoom supported mob meeting?
It doesn't, but it has some interesting other uses of technology. Like some of the things in that movie are like cutting edge. Like there's contact lenses that Batman wears that like record everything. And like the whole like premise of this is like he's keeping a journal and like records of, like, he calls it like the Gotham experiment. Like him being Batman is very much like I might abandon this, like I want to see if I have an effect, right? That feels cutting edge because like the contact lenses can record everything, and he goes back and replays it and like uses it to kind of solve like some of the mysteries and things. And then there's like other bits of it that it feels so like what's the word, anachronistic, like at times in there, and I really dig that vibe. Like, and you'll see when you watch it, but no Zoom meetings, unfortunately, that I can recall.
Also, Will, you reminded me of the thing. I had to look up when the like NSA leak happened. That was like 2014, right? So like a long time after this came out. Because it's like, yeah, the echolocation might be a bit far-fetched, but the idea of like listening in to chatter on literally everyone's smartphone, that already happens to some degree. I don't know exactly how it works, but I've seen like reports, and I've actually personally tested it. But if you talk about a product that you normally don't discuss or buy just for a while to your phone, and you go Google like a few hours later, you will see an ad for that product.
Yep,
I believe it. Yep,
it's happened to us. We did an experiment. We were hanging out with some friends a couple weeks ago, and we said some product out loud, And we're like, let's see if anyone's phone, like in the next hour, and scrolling through Facebook, there it was, like
Yep.
on, like an advertisement. So
Would you like to know more? No,
yeah.
I'm good.
I
I'm
would
cool,
like
man.
you to stop eavesdropping.
Don't call me, I'll call you. I'll give you, are you guys familiar with the theory that like Heath Ledger's Joker, kind of speaking of like of the time, is like a combat like vet from like the Iraq War or like Afghanistan? Like there's like a lot of
Oh,
evidence that like kind of
what?
his
Oh,
knowledge of like weapons, explosives,
yeah.
like there's like a whole like article that I read one time that was pretty compelling argument that he may be like a vet with some like PTSD, who maybe endured some trauma, and that's what kind of set him off. But yeah, I think that's kind of an interesting take on it, to kind of tie that into some hot topics at the time, in 2008.
I
I
do
would,
appreciate the fact that this Batman tried to be grounded in reality as much as it could be without going too far out into the supernatural aspects of a lot of superhero movies. So that
Yeah.
would make a lot of sense to me.
It's
Yeah.
cool that they don't explain it, I guess. Like those context clues are neat if that's the case, but I think ultimately what makes him scary is that like he doesn't have an origin. And I talked about comic influences very much like that. Him telling like a different story about how he became who he was is taken right from The Killing Joke, where the Joker reveals, I think it's on like one of the last pages, like when he's like, when it comes to my own like origin, like I prefer, yeah, I think it's my own origin story, I prefer multiple choice. And he like kind of like throws up his hands and like reveals that who knows, if he's telling the truth. So.
I also like it because it makes him truly feel like the embodiment of just like the chaos and trauma and pain and just kind of like lack of caring about anything that's inevitable if you're living in a really violent, like chaotic time and place. Like he's less of an individual and more of just an accumulation of traumatized people.
Well, with that in mind, I think that wraps up our discussion for the Dark Knight, unless you guys have any other thoughts you want to add in before we turn it over to see what game we've got going on.
Yeah, so we're gonna do another shot in the dark for our listeners who maybe don't recall, or if you're new to the show. This is an occasional segment where my co-host and I have curated like a list each of films that we've not seen and shared it with, of course, the group. And one of us will attempt to discern the plot of said film from said list, only knowing what they know from pop culture. So whether it be stills or trailers or discussions. So May has graciously volunteered to go on today's episode. And
I'm so excited.
we do have a selection. Will and I talked in Messenger.
Oh God.
And we have determined that you will attempt to tell us the plot of 2001 A Space Odyssey. So we've gotten some visual clues for you here.
Okay.
If you get stuck.
Okay.
So
if you get stuck.
Never having seen what is already a pretty goddamn obtuse movie, I'm not gonna lie. Even if you have seen it, to describe this.
I thought we were friends, Chris.
This was actually Will's suggestion, and I was like,
Will.
yeah, I like that. It's good.
Nice. Chris is like, I'm double crossing you now. You're on your own, buddy. It's Batman style.
Okay. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say it is in space.
Yep.
Okay.
So far, so good.
Nailing it.
I'm guessing it takes place in 2001.
Yep.
Correct.
So far, so good.
Check. See, you're good at this game. You're fine. Don't worry about it. Just sit back and ride it, man. You're good.
I know that there's a wormhole involved of some sort. Yeah.
May, I'm gonna give you so yeah, there is eventually I want you to
And it's a trippy wormhole. I know that.
I want you to see what you can make of I'm gonna give you a visual hint, and you tell me what you make of this. For so What do you make of this? Where does this fit into it, do you suppose?
It's such a small image.
I think you can make it bigger, maybe. Oh no, I guess not.
Oh
Yeah,
wow, that is tiny.
yeah. I thought it would be bigger when you clicked on it.
Do that
Hold on.
Okay,
control zoom thing. Yeah.
all
Maybe if
right,
I
no,
do this.
no, you know what? This is enough. Is this so they go to a planet where apes worship obelisks?
I think you should keep going with that thought. Yes. Please
Sure.
continue. I would like to hear more of your film plot.
Me too.
Yeah, so actually no, they go into the wormhole, and the wormhole is the like incarnation of various thoughts and memories and films they have seen, and the passengers have seen Planet of the Apes. And so they manifest the Planet of the Apes.
Ooh.
So we're saying this is a spin-off or like a metatextual like
I'm saying it's metatextual. This is one of
amazing.
many scenes this wormhole takes them through.
Doing great so far, doing great. Will has prepared another image for you, and I'll put these into the video.
I'm also going to say someone dies early on due to some kind of space-related mishap.
Space-related mishap? Okay.
What happened in space that led to said mishap?
A lack of oxygen.
Oh.
Would be my theory. In fact, it's the person that you sent me an image of because they are wearing red, and we all know that red shirts die first.
Damn, this is Star Trek. All right. Original series.
That is awesome. I'm gonna find one more image to send you, and then we will. I don't want to like spoil too much of the movie for you. I'll tell you about how close you are, and Will you can weigh in as well. I'm sorry. Go ahead, May.
I was just gonna say I should describe these visuals for people who are listening. So the last one was what looked to be apes. They were very small and grainy, but looked like apes surrounding some kind of stone obelisk, and there were some bushes and stuff. This one is of a woman in a red spacesuit in what looks to be like a fancy French building of some sort with models and stuff. I'm going to say that in addition to dying early on, this chick is in yet another like memory incarnate in this trippy wormhole.
Okay. I got one more image for you, and then we'll tell you how you did.
They predicted the Jordan Peele film Nope in this image, which looks to be just a camera lens with a red dot in it. At least that's what it looks like to me. God, this is like a what do they call them? A Rorschach, the ink blot test.
Yeah, the Rorschach test. Yes.
What do you see in this image? Because now I'm looking longer, and I'm like, well, it could be like a sun or a star in the distance, or it could be some kind of a warp core exploding, and it has like a glass dome. I don't know. I think that there is going to be an explosion though, because how else could a space film end besides these spaceship blowing up, or at least a spaceship blowing up?
Well, May, I would say overall you did pretty good. Again, I'm not going to spoil the film for you because you know, it's one of those ones like all films that could be on our list at some point.
Right.
And even if it's not, like, you know, it's you owe it to yourself to experience this. I will say, so your first instinct for the final image is correct, that it is like a lens of sort. I won't say the specifics. I can't wait if you do go watch this movie at some point to see
oh
like
my
what
gosh,
you make
yes please
of all these. So you got a lot of things right. So there is a wormhole involved. There is a space related accident at some point. The apes are worshiping that monolith. What else? Well, like, I know there's some other things like that she said. I was like, this is
Does the lady in red die?
That is a man, actually. That is
Oh.
that is a man.
Sorry,
And,
did not mean to
uh,
misgender.
that's gonna go into spoiler territory.
Okay.
Yeah,
As to
so
that
we
person's
can't
fate.
answer that question for
All
you.
right,
Yeah.
all right.
It
But
does
the
not
other
end in an
person that
explosion.
yeah, I'm gonna say
It
that
ends in
the
a-
accident that does take place is due to a lack of oxygen to some degree.
That's true.
There is that, yeah. There,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, so you actually did pretty good.
Are there any
that, like,
major points that I missed? I never said who was
Um,
on the spaceship, which was probably.
yeah, there is one major plot point that you could have gotten potentially from one of these three images. I won't say, I don't want to like give anything away, but there is one major thing that you could have discerned. It would have been tough, but depending on your pop culture knowledge of this movie, that is
Okay.
a missing key element. It's a pretty famous one.
I'm gonna have to watch this like this week now because I need to know.
Nice.
But I again, overall, you did pretty well. This movie is a little bit on the obtuse side, so well done. I think
Thank
like
you.
Yeah.
Thank
top
you.
marks, really. Like
If
Can
we
I just say
draw
that I
this
would-
movie, I'm gonna freak out.
Oh, that would be hilarious.
I always shuffle so everyone can see. Like I don't cut around the shuffles on purpose because I don't want anyone accusing us of shenanigans. That would be quite funny. And yeah, I guess we just told everyone that it's on our list, but that's okay. Like there you go. You get a little sneak peek. This movie might pop up somewhere in our list.
Well, what were you saying?
Oh, I was just gonna say I would very much like to see the film that you have just described. Like I would totally watch the shit out of that. But
I'll
man.
write something and put it on my blog.
Yes, please.
Well, let's find out what we are going to in fact watch next if you guys are ready.
Yes.
Let us do it.
All right. Needs a shuffle. I'm hoping for a May card because it's just waffled between Will and I for a while now.
I've been having a
No.
break. It's been great.
All right. It is You've Never Seen ? Exclamation.
Nice.
And
Oh, shut up.
it is, I gotta go to our list.
I really hope it
Please,
is a May
please, please,
pick.
please.
It is a Chris pick, but I'm happy if we want to draw a May card, I can toss this back in. And what do you guys think? We can always cut around this and draw.
We could compare and see which one.
Cheat.
No, I don't want to cheat. I don't want to. I just I can throw this back in and we can draw like until we get a May card. If
It's
you
all
want.
part of the plan,
or-
Chris. Don't
or
try
we-
to
or
fight
we can do
it.
this. Statistically, it'll be more likely to draw a May
Okay.
card the further we go, but I feel bad that we haven't gotten one in a while. So I'm happy to toss it back in.
That depends. Are we going by Batman ethics or Joker ethics?
Oh, you gonna flip that
I
coin?
mean, my D&D character is very much on the Joker ethics side. Like that's what Conrad would do, but I'll leave it up to you guys. What do you want to do?
I'm cool either way.
What pick was this one?
I didn't
This was-
say because I don't want to give it away.
Oh. Okay.
I don't want that to influence your decision.
Oh.
Mm.
Let's go with this one then. Unless wait, did you say it was Will or yours?
It's mine.
It's Chris. Yeah.
Okay. If you're
really
tired,
don't
we
mind.
can go until there's a pick for me.
No, I need you to make a decision. I'm leaving it up to you guys. This is
Oh my gosh.
totally your call.
I'm gonna go find a dice.
Nice.
Yes.
Ah,
I feel like I might leave this part in now and say like, hey, just for the sake of fairness, like.
yeah.
All right, I'm gonna roll a d20.
Mhm.
This is chaos. Controlled chaos.
Okay. High or low, Chris?
Low.
Okay. So 10 and below is gonna be you. Above 10 is me.
Cool. All right.
It is a 4.
4. Okay, so we'll stick with this one. So this is a one of my selections.
This is
The
Two-Face
film-
approved.
Yes.
Amazing.
I believe in Harvey Dent. Let's do this.
The film is Bonnie and Clyde, which is
Hey!
right at the start of my favorite era of Hollywood, which is New Hollywood. So where directors
Ooh.
started telling more intimate and complex, nuanced stories. So having anti-heroes like Bonnie and Clyde, played in this film by Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway. I'm so excited. I've never seen it, and I know it was quite violent at the time, and people were worried it was going to corrupt the youth because it kind of glamorized a little bit of the run and gun life and robbery, that kind of stuff. So I'm quite excited to see how this holds up. I know it's an all-time classic, just never made it around to seeing it. So.
I haven't seen it either, actually. So
First time for me too. All right.
Hey,
Yay.
it's a hat trick.
Yeah. Hey.
I do think that next episode, if we don't draw a May card, we should insist that we then do it at that point, because May deserves to shine as well. I know statistically we would get there eventually, but the more that we waffle between Will and I, the more chances that are like May will just have to go like many times in a row.
Every time after that, yeah.
That
I
is a
don't want
good
that.
point.
I don't
was
want that
enjoying-
Stop
either.
the season.
I was enjoying my vacation personally, but
When you put it that way.
Yeah. So yeah, I suspect this will be very much like just an open-ended discussion, since none of us have seen this. Like I'll kind of try to work something out as we watch it, but more to come on that.
Woo.
Excellent. I'm stoked.
Me too. Well, that wraps it up for this week's episode. Thank you, as always, for hanging out with us for an hour plus and talking about movies. We will see you next week. Please give us a like, share, and subscribe if you have not already. Again, coming up soonish, there might be a giveaway. So if you don't subscribe on YouTube or your podcast services, I would suggest that you do that. We'll have more details to come, but a little teaser for celebrating a milestone. And until next time, we love you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.